How's it going, guys, and welcome back to the channel for a bit of a instant reaction when we talk about roster mania. The news is already beginning to run wild. We're like 48 hours out from Major 1 and things are picking up like crazy, and they are picking up most specifically with OpTic Texas. All eyes right now are on OpTic Texas. The spotlight is on that four-man lineup to figure out what's going to be going down, right? They have the slow placement at Major 1. Quickly, questions started to be asked. You know what? Is it possible? Like, could they make a change? Is it likely they could make a move? I was even pretty skeptical that maybe outside of like one or two teams, we would probably see a change, but I did not think that OpTic Texas would be a team to move as quickly as they did. Because coming into the season, we were all worried. I had made that known on the channel multiple times. I was pretty concerned at the fact that they dropped half the roster, brought them back together, they glue the pieces back, and they say, you know what, we're going to move forward with this. You know, it felt like a very fragile roster coming into the season. They had that slow placement, and even I personally did not think that despite the placement that they received at Major 1, that we would see potentially a move like this one. So, essentially, there's been a lot of talk on the timeline, a lot of rumors, a lot of things being tossed around. It sounded like it could be DASHI that was going to be removed from OpTic Texas. Now, it sounds like it may not only be DASHI, it very well could be iLLeY as well, which were, again, the two players who were coming into the season supposed to be removed from the roster. I mean, OpTic Texas literally tweeted it out and then, you know, eventually renounced that decision. It was talked about, hey, SCUMPS basically came to the team and said, you know what, no, we're keeping this whole team together. Shotzzy was thinking about other options. He ends up staying. So again, it's a very tricky situation going on with OpTic right now. And so what is most interesting is not only have we heard that DASHI could be going elsewhere, not only have we heard that iLLeY could even be going elsewhere, but we've also heard what possibly could be some of the rumored additions to this roster. And that is what we're going to talk about right now. We're going to pull up this tweet. This is coming in from CDL Scrim Intel. He tweeted out, the OpTic roster I have heard is Arcitys, SCUMPS, Shotzzy, and PRED. Things can change as we saw last time, but yeah, this is the one I'm hearing now. Now, that is, again, one of the many different things that are going around right now, but that lineup in general is fascinating. It really is, because it affects three different franchises. Like, it'd be different if it was a one-player move, like let's say the DASHI ends up going out, they bring another player in. But no, this very well is involving the LA Gorillas. This is involving the Seattle Surge. And then where do iLLeY and DASHI go if this roster change ends up, you know, rolling through? Like, if OpTic Texas decides to buy out Arcitys and they decide to buy out PRED, where does iLLeY and where does DASHI go, right? Could that free up opportunities on different teams? Is it a trade that could go down? Which, again, trades are so difficult to pull off, but it's a possibility. Like, maybe you send iLLeY, for example, to LAG for Arcitys, and that is the way that it goes. You know, again, there may be something else involved in that, maybe some cash exchanges hands, etc. But it is already affecting three teams. This very well could be a ripple that affects multiple teams in the CDL, because if they are hearing that iLLeY, more specifically that DASHI, is available, there will be teams who are willing to move everything out of place in order to grab either of those two players. So again, this is a move that currently affects three teams. It could affect as many as almost every team in the CDL, which is wild to think about. But this team on paper, right? I want to talk about what this team could look like. Arcitys and SCUMPS possibly back together again from the old Chicago Huntsman days. I know that those two love playing with each other. It was difficult for them to go separate ways, as we know. Arcitys would later go into Atlanta FaZe, see tons of success, and then coming into this offseason, went to the LA Gorillas, and Atlanta FaZe would pick up Slasher. So to see those two guys back together would be very interesting. Would also make a lot of sense. It feels like right now, OpTic Texas, we all know DASHI has some of the best. I mean, I've personally said I think he's got one of the best shots of any player who's ever played Call of Duty of all time. So the fact that they're thinking about removing him from the team most likely indicates that it's not necessarily a gun skill problem. As we know, it could be more of an internal problem. It could be a communication issue. It could be a teamwork, you know, I think that they're trying to identify. We know that Arcitys historically with the Atlanta FaZe has seen a lot of success. And I imagine that considering how things are going on over at LAG, there could be a bit of chaos going on with that roster as well, considering how well their academy team did. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that LAG could be looking at making moves. Now, the biggest problem is that they invested a lot in Arcitys. Like, it feels like the only player who is safe right now on Gorillas is Arcitys. So the rumor that he could be heading over to OpTic Texas is very intriguing. It's like, that's the guy that we're investing in. We're giving him a 3-year deal. And within one event, he could be headed elsewhere. So is it a money situation for OpTic Texas? Could it be a trade? So maybe LAG gets compensated with the player. So maybe they get iLLeY. Maybe they get DASHY in exchange, which would be very interesting, very intriguing to see how that team would end up, working out, possibly. And like I said, maybe it doesn't involve it at all. Maybe LAG realizes, you know what? This experiment did not work out. Maybe we just rock with our academy team and we just rock from there. So again, a very interesting situation with Arcitys and LAG. Not a name that I would have expected to be headed to OpTic Texas, despite how great of a fit that it looks on paper. So the other addition that we have to talk about, of course, is PRED, right? Rookie of the year. I would definitely go out to say probably, if not the best SMG in Vanguard. Obviously has a claim to that title coming into this year as well. An unbelievable player, right? AG has evolved in so many different ways. I mean, he went from being a good, very talented player to literally the back half of Vanguard was the favorite, right? Was the favorite to, win Rookie of the Year. He was the favorite in terms of the, he was the favorite to, be one of the better SMGs in the game, if not the best SMG in the game. And I think, you give it like maybe another major or two. If he's playing at that level, he's definitely in the MVP conversation. There's no doubt about it. So another interesting element to this is that much like Arcitys on LAG, it feels like PRED is not a piece that is going to be moved easily from Seattle Surge. We had heard some rumors during the offseason that maybe PRED ends up joining OpTic Texas. There were rumors that Hydra could be joining OpTic Texas, Cammy, a bunch of different names, yet nothing ended up happening. And we were wondering, we speculated, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with franchises just saying, absolutely not. Like, we are not letting this guy go for anything. So the fact that Arcitys could be leaving LAG, the fact that PRED, who's one of the most valuable assets of any player in the CDL, could also be going to OpTic Texas is wild. And this, to me, would be the most likely case, I feel like, out of the two, where we could see a trade. Maybe for Seattle Surge, this could be the DASHY for PRED trade, which is crazy to even think that that could be a possibility. But that would, maybe soften things up a little bit. It wouldn't just be, yeah, PRED leaves Seattle. What do you do now? That ordeal. So a lot of moving pieces, but PRED, his implementation on OpTic Texas would be fascinating, right? We have been speculating, and just to let you guys know, throughout the entirety of the season, we are going to be hyping up who is going to be SCUMPS' replacement, right? Who is going to be the guy to fill the King's shoes? Who is going to step in and be the future SMG for OpTic Texas? Is it going to be Shotzzy? Again, we learned that he could have been headed to a different team during the offseason of last year. So you don't necessarily feel 100% confident in that if you are an OpTic Texas fan, but maybe it could be PRED, right? Maybe PRED is that guy for this team. There's a documentary being made about the guy. There's been all kinds of talk about, his future with Seattle Surge after this season. He's going to be, literally a prospect by every single franchise. And so the fact that you have these two pieces who just feel like they're immovable right now, yet are rumored to be headed toward OpTic, which again, it says that those are the options that OpTic wants. It does not mean that those are the options that OpTic are going to get. I would be surprised if they're able to get both of them, to be honest with you. But the fact that they're showing that much interest, to me at least, means that there is a chance, and it means that they are willing and are aware of the circumstances and the difficulties that it takes to get those players. Which again, just shows me the value of SCUMPS last season, right? The value that OpTic sees with saying, you know what, we have to go out on top. And not only do we have to go out in SCUMPS final season with a bang, but we have to be prepared for the future, right? We can't rely on what feels like a very shaky foundation of OpTic Texas. We have to continue forward, and who can be our future? Because it doesn't feel like DASHY's, his history and his future are going to be with OpTic. I mean, iLLeY, it feels like that's up in the air. Shotzzy even debated on going to a different team, and because of SCUMPS' influence, decided to stay. That is all 4 players with a very high likelihood that they may not be on OpTic for the future. And that is what this team is all about, is these long-term moves. And after already, you know, major number one, to see this dramatic change is already uncommon, but it's especially uncommon with OpTic. Like, very rarely do we see a huge move like this early on in a season for them. And so that just kind of shows the sense of urgency that if there is actually a bit of like an actual I guess the word I'm looking for is, if there actually is a bit of like solidness to this, then it's not a surprise that they're trying to go and swing for the fences. But already, man, on paper, Arcitys, SCUMPS, Shotzzy, and PRED quickly becomes, at least for me, one of the best looking teams in the league. Like, to see Shotzzy and PRED together on the SMGs is terrifying. If we are living in an SMG meta moving into Major 2, you're set. You really are. You're not going to get much better than that from a talent perspective. From SCUMPS POV, I'm imagining he would move over to the flex. Arcitys would remain as a main AR. We talked about coming into the season about how, you know, depending on some moves that OpTic Texas could be making, potentially SCUMP decides to switch into an AR, goes back to his roots early on in his career. Actually wasn't an SMG, played more of an AR, as that was pretty much the meta, like MW2, Black Ops 1, etc. So there's a high likelihood that we could be seeing SCUMP change roles for the first time in a decade. So there's a lot to look at, right? There's a lot of moving parts when it comes down to this team, but Arcitys, SCUMPS, Shotzzy, and PRED very well could be OpTic Texas's lineup moving into Major 2, which would be insane. It leaves lots of questions in terms of what happens with LAG, what happens with Seattle, where does DASHY and iLLeY go? How does this affect every other franchise? Because I imagine top teams are going to realize that DASHY and iLLeY are available. What do we do now, right? What does LAG do now that Arcitys has departed? Did they get a piece in, you know, in combination with this? The same thing could be said for Seattle Surge. What did they do in the absence of PRED? To me, this will quickly elevate OpTic Texas up the leaderboards and honestly up the power rankings for sure, if this move is officially made. But that is going to do it for Instant Reaction. We got a lot more content coming out. I imagine I'm going to be staying up quite late tonight. I apologize, guys, if you've made it to this point of the video. Lando's lock-ins, it was kind of chalked. I did my best. The internet at the hotel was not working. I made thumbnails for it. I recorded it, and nothing ended up coming of it. But that's going to be coming out. More content on the channel. Vlogs as well for major events, too. There's a lot going on for me personally, too, like in terms of what's going on with the set that you see behind me. So that's where I will leave it. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already. More news to come. OpTic Texas, they are on the clock. If a move is going to be made, it sounds like it could be happening very, very soon. So make sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you guys back here on the channel in just a bit.